My name is Harper Ellison. I'm 26, and this morning I learned what it feels like when your own last name becomes a weapon. The letter was waiting like a threat taped to my life. Certified, crisp, my kitchen counter still beaded with coffee where I set it down. I read it once, then again, then a third time because my brain refused to accept the shape of the words. Reverse mortgage, $180,000. Disbursements totaling $45,000. The property address, my house, my first house, the modest 3-bedroom ranch I bought 2 years ago after 6 years of double shifts and spreadsheets colored like a quilt. I called the number, voice steady in the way a window holds during a storm. The woman at First National Lending Group was polite, clinical. She verified the account, the loan, the title encumbrance. Then she asked me to confirm my date of birth. April 12th, 1967, she read. I stared at the far wall where the morning light made a silver rectangle. That's not my birthday. A pause softened into something like pity. Ma'am, that is what we have on file. It's my father's birthday. The silence in my kitchen felt human. I could hear my own breathing, and underneath it, a low, familiar hum I recognized from childhood, the sound of a story I didn't ask for beginning without my consent. I hung up and opened the rest of the mail, the pile I'd been saving, because 3 months ago, my father, Douglas, asked if he could have some banking documents sent to my address. Package theft in my neighborhood, he said, just until things settle down. I said yes, because it was a small favor, and he's my father, and I wanted to believe that this time, finally, he wanted something simple. Envelopes hissed as I tore them. Credit cards I didn't apply for. A personal loan statement from a company that looked like a website built in a basement. A notice from a payday lender about a missed payment. Denials. Collections. 7 hard inquiries in 90 days, my name sprayed across them like graffiti. Every document was tidy, official, confident. It's astonishing how legitimate theft looks when it wears a logo. I didn't cry. I took pictures. I lined everything up on the table like evidence, because it was. Then I called Caleb. Harper? His voice always lands like a hand on my back. What's wrong? He listened while I told him everything. The letter, the call, the birthday that wasn't mine. He didn't say maybe it's a mistake. He said, I'm coming over. 10 minutes later, he was in my kitchen, shoulders damp from the rain, eyes sweeping the paper trail like he could build a barricade out of it. We're going to document. We're going to lock down what we can. And you're taking this to a branch in person today, he said. Calm, practical. I fell a little more in love with the way he doesn't flinch. I printed my original mortgage, my driver's license, my passport, my social security card, every adult credential I possess. I tucked them into a folder like armor. As we headed for the door, my phone lit up with a preview from an unknown number. You'll get priority if you come by today. S. I frowned. The way the dash leaned, the spacing. It tickled a memory. Sophie. I hadn't seen that signature since Caleb and I first started dating. Sophie Hart, his ex, worked somewhere in lending, per his vague description months ago. I told myself the world is full of S's. I slid the phone face down into my bag. At the bank, Patricia Leone, a branch manager with a voice that sounded like she'd spent years telling the truth to people who didn't want to hear it, invited me into her office. She studied my IDs, my neat stack of dread. Her jaw set. Ms. Ellison, she said, this is identity theft. The signature on these loan files doesn't match yours, and the age would make you ineligible for a reverse mortgage. We will initiate an internal investigation, but because disbursements have already been made, the title on your property is currently encumbered. The word encumbered landed like a trapdoor opening under my ribs. How long to unwind? I asked. Months, Patricia said. You'll need a police report, disputes with the credit bureaus, and likely an attorney. We'll pursue recovery, but legally the lien exists until fraud is proven. On the drive home, the rain eased to a whisper against the windshield. Caleb didn't fill the quiet. He let me hold it. At a stoplight, he said, when we get back, we change your locks, and we install cameras. I never gave him a key, I said. You gave him permission to send mail, he said gently. Sometimes that's the first key. I found my father and my brother exactly where I expected them. Douglas on the couch, Mason watching a game, a bowl of neon chips wobbling on the armrest. I didn't knock. I've had a key since I was 18. I dropped the stack on the coffee table, paper fanned like a deck. Explain. Douglas didn't look surprised, not even defensive. For a beat, I saw something like resignation soften his face, as if the crash had already happened and he was only here to narrate the debris. I was trying to help the family, he said. I laughed once, the ugly kind that shakes loose from somewhere you don't visit on purpose. By stealing my name, by putting a lien on my house, that's not help, that's theft. It's not stealing if it's family, he said, like he was quoting scripture. It is exactly stealing, I said. You took money that wasn't yours in my name, using your birthday, your picture, your signature pretending to be mine. You don't even understand what a reverse mortgage is. It's a way to access equity without payments, he said quickly, proud of the line he'd memorized. Until death or sale, I said. It's not a payment plan, it's a time bomb, and you strapped it to me. Mason looked between us, blanching. Dad, it can't be like that. Douglas rubbed his face. I had debts, investments that just needed runway. I planned to tell you once it stabilized. Stabilized, I repeated, like it was a new species I needed to classify. And the part where you planned to have Mason move into my house to establish residency and muddy the title, was that stabilization too? Mason sat back stunned. Move into her house? The flicker of surprise I needed, in him, not in my father, arrived. Mason's voice went small. I thought he said you knew. We never spoke, I said. For a moment, the room was only the distant murmur of the game. Crowd noise, synthetic hope. I thought of the way Patricia had said months. I thought of the way my chest would tighten every time I heard the mailbox swing. I'm filing a police report, I said. Today. I'm disputing every account. I'm hiring an attorney. If I see you at my house, I'll call the police. If you contact me directly, my lawyer will respond. The bank already knows. That train has left. Douglas went pale, then angry, then something worse. Righteous. You do this to your own father? You did this to your own daughter, I said. You did this to me. I left. I didn't slam the door. The click of the latch felt like a vow. Back home, Caleb held the ladder while I swapped the deadbolt, then mounted cameras at the front and back, 2 along the sides, 1 angled at the driveway. We sat on the floor with the app open, watching the grayscale view of my porch, the live timestamp rolling. 20:14:06. The house hummed. My breathing finally found a rhythm that didn't hurt. The phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I let it go to text. Unknown. If you want this unwound fast, come alone tomorrow. I can prioritize your file. S. Caleb saw my face shift. What? I handed him the phone. He read, throat tight. S. Could be spam, I said, and heard how thin it sounded. He met my eyes. Harper. Sophie did some contract work with lenders a while back. Admin stuff. She told me she was out of it. Out of what? I asked. He hesitated. Pipelines, intake, scheduling. She knew people who move files faster. I set the phone down like it was hot. I didn't look at him when I said, tomorrow I bring my ID, my lawyer's card, and a detective's name. I don't go anywhere alone. Caleb nodded. Good. When the house finally quieted, I walked room to room. My house has small dignities. The uneven paint along the baseboard I promised to fix, the thrift store lamp with a crooked shade I never replace because its light is kind. I touched the doorframe and told myself the most important truth I knew. What is yours can still be yours if you refuse to be shamed out of protecting it. I set an early alarm. The certified letter lay on the counter like a dare. The cameras blinked their red dots. My name, my one ordinary, extraordinary name, felt heavy and holy in my mouth. Tomorrow, I thought, we begin. Patricia had the kind of patience you only earn by saying, I'm sorry, but the policy says otherwise, 1,000 times to 1,000 storms. She led me past the customer desks into her glass-walled office, closed the door, and pulled up the loan file on a monitor, angled away from the lobby. Start from the top, she said. I told her everything. The letter, the call, the wrong birthday that was so perfectly wrong, it made my teeth ache. I laid out my documents like a magician proving there was no trick. Passport, driver's license, original mortgage, a stack of envelopes that smelled faintly like damp cardboard, and panic. Patricia's eyes didn't flinch. Ms. Ellison, this is fraud. She clicked through a screen. The signature on the closing package is not yours. The broker's intake photo shows a man who is clearly not you. The birth date would make you 58. My father is 58, I said, and the sentence tasted like a confession I hadn't consented to. Here's the part you won't like. Patricia folded her hands. Funds have already been disbursed. The lien sits on your title until fraud is legally established. The bank will cooperate, but there are processes. How many months? I asked, because I couldn't ask how many sleepless nights in a way a bank could answer. Possibly 6 to 12, she said. File a police report today. Freeze your credit. Dispute every account with all 3 bureaus. Retain counsel. We'll open our internal fraud case and coordinate with investigators. Who was the broker? My voice came out steadier than my hands. Patricia glanced at the screen. Victor Lang. He's known. Her mouth compressed. Ms. Ellison, write down everything you remember, every call, every time you saw your father. Do not contact him again without counsel present. I wrote it all down. The date Dad had asked to send mail. The color of his jacket when he'd said package theft, like it was a weather pattern. The way I'd wanted to believe in a small favor. When I left Patricia's office, the lobby lights looked too bright, like a smile stretched a little too wide. Outside, rain freckled the concrete. Caleb waited at the curb, fingers hooked over the top of the steering wheel, eyes tracking my face for damage. Well, he asked. They believe me. They're opening an investigation, I said. But the lien stays until this is untangled. Months. He nodded like he'd rehearsed for this. Okay, police first. Then we find an attorney. We did both. The precinct smelled like coffee and wet wool. Detective Jenna Alvarez met us in a small interview room adorned with a curling poster about holiday package theft. She had an attentive stillness that made me slow down and get precise. Keep emotions in, she said, not unkindly. Put facts on paper. Emotions are for therapy. Facts are for court. I told her everything. She asked clean questions and took cleaner notes. When I handed over the certified letter and the stack of envelopes, she whistled softly. You caught this early, she said. 4 months isn't a lifetime, even if it feels like it. We'll need your written statement and copies of your ID. Do not destroy anything. Even junk mail might be evidence. Can I say something unnecessary? I asked, surprising myself. Sure, Detective Alvarez said. He's my father, I said. He taught me to ride a bike and burn pancakes. He also, I tapped the letter, did this. How do those things live in the same person? Detective Alvarez's face didn't soften. It steadied. Some people keep 2 truths in their pockets and spend the wrong one when they're desperate. I left with a case number, a list of next steps, and a sense that someone else now carried one handle of this heavy thing. By late afternoon, Alicia Park, a fraud attorney with a voice like tempered glass, returned my call. We met in her office where the carpet swallowed sound and the wall art was all soothing rectangles. Here's what happens, Alicia said, flipping open a legal pad. We file fraud affidavits with the lender and the title company. We submit disputes with Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. We send a spoliation letter to preserve the broker's records. We prepare for your father's counsel to rattle sabers and accuse you of family betrayal. What do I do when he calls? I asked. You don't, she said. You document. You forward to me. If he shows up, you call the police. Depending on escalation, we'll consider a temporary restraining order. Depending on escalation. I nodded like a student who doesn't dare ask what chapter escalation lives in. Dusk had blurred the city into a watercolor by the time we drove to my father's rental. The porch light was on, a halo over peeling paint. I didn't knock. Old habits are stubborn. So is a key that still fits. Douglas and Mason were where I knew they'd be. Couch, television, chips. It was almost tender in its predictability, like seeing people in a painting you visited your whole life. I placed the documents on the coffee table. Paper slid against wood with a soft authority. Explain. Mason's eyes cut to Dad's face like a compass seeking north. Douglas didn't feign surprise. He didn't perform innocence. He looked tired. Then he arranged his mouth into something noble. I was trying to help the family, he said. It's always that script, I answered. It always starts noble and ends mathematical with me footing the arithmetic. It's not stealing if it's family. He said it calmly, like telling me the price of milk. It is exactly stealing, I said, and laid out the definition like a chalk outline. Identity theft. Fraud. You used your birthday. You put your picture in a file with my name. You took money against a house that is mine. Douglas clasped his hands, elbows on his knees, like a pastor about to deliver an apology that asks for absolution and offers none. I have debts. The collectors were circling. This was a bridge. I was going to tell you when it stabilized. Stabilized? I echoed. You mean after you had Mason move into my house to establish residency and complicate title issues in case anyone asked? That kind of stability? Mason flinched. Move into your house? He didn't tell you? I asked softly and watched his face do the math. He told the bank it was family property, that we share costs, right, Dad? Did you tell them you also share my signature? Mason's jaw worked. Dad said you'd offered, that we discussed it. We didn't, I said, and the way Mason exhaled told me that some small, loyal part of him had been praying I'd say exactly that. Douglas spread his hands. Harper, this is bigger than forms and signatures. We are a family. No, this is exactly forms and signatures, I said. That's how families and courtrooms get defined. He tried one more posture, wounded dignity. You'd have your own father arrested? I didn't put a lien on your home, I said. You did on mine. I took a breath that felt like stepping through a doorway and not looking back. Here's what happens next. I filed a police report. I retained counsel. The bank opened a fraud case. If you contact me, my attorney will respond. If you come near my house, I will call the police. And Mason, I turned to my brother. If you show up at my door, I'll call them on you too, even if you cry. This stops at my property line. Mason looked like someone who discovered the ocean is cold while already waist deep. I didn't know, Harp, I swear. You do now, I said. No better than to stand still while Dad makes you part of his story. I left. I think the door latched the same as always, but in my body, it sounded final. Back home, Caleb didn't talk. He handed me the drill and held the ladder while I swapped the deadbolt for a smart lock that chirped like a polite bird. He fed Ethernet through the crawl space while I mounted 2 bullet cameras under the eaves. The app bloomed on my phone. Front door, back door, driveway, east side, west side. 5 squares of grayscale certainty. We watched our own porch in real time, like a show we'd produce carefully and never let air. You're okay? He asked finally. I'm furious, I said, and I searched for the word. Concise. That's a good version of you, he said, the one with labels. I wanted to kiss him then for knowing how my brain uses office supplies to survive. Instead, I opened the freezer and extracted 2 emergency ice creams, like a ritual offering to our future selves. We sat on the floor, the cameras humming, the house settling, the way houses do when they like you. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to text, then I read and read again. Unknown. We can still unwind this quietly. Come by at 10 a.m. No boyfriend, no lawyer. I'll make sure your file gets priority. S. The signature wasn't a name so much as a pose. The short dash, the period after the letter, S. It took me back to a night before Caleb and I were serious, when he'd shown me a text from Sophie Hart that ended exactly like that. I could hear her voice from his one old story. Bright, competent, the person who knows where the back door to every process lives. Spam? Caleb asked, reading over my shoulder. I don't think spam knows your ex's punctuation, I said. He blanched. Harper, I swear I didn't. She said she'd left that world. She said she just did admin, scheduling. She knew people who could, move files faster. I'm not accusing you, I said, because I wasn't. Not yet. The accusation was a shape forming far away, not here. But I'm not walking into any room without my lawyer again. He exhaled, shoulders loosening. Good. I forwarded the message to Alicia. Her reply came fast. Do not respond. Screenshot. Save number. I'll trace ownership. If it's who I think it is, it links to the broker's pipeline. Also, tomorrow we file the spoliation letter to Victor Lang. If he deletes anything, he can answer to a judge. At 9:12 p.m., my email pinged. Subject line, resident verification, Ellison property, from something called Lang Capital Services. The body was thin, almost jaunty. Just confirming all occupants at 1449 Willow are immediate family. No further action needed at this time. I stared at the second sentence until the words separated from meaning. No further action needed is what you write when you're certain you've already trapped the mouse. Caleb swore softly. They're building a paper wall. I hit forward to Alicia. This just arrived. A minute later. It's intimidation theater. Do not engage. If they escalate, we escalate. We're fine. At 11:26 p.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I didn't look. At 11:33, it buzzed again, longer this time. I rolled over and squinted. The app pulsed a banner across my lock screen. Motion detected, front door. The house went still in the way prey does. My breath shortened to the size of a keyhole. I reached for Caleb's hand and felt it already reaching for mine. "Open it," he whispered. I tapped. The porch resolved into night vision grain. A figure on my steps, head tilted toward the camera like he could talk through it. My father. He lifted his hand and knocked. He knocked 3 times, patient and polite, like a man asking to borrow sugar instead of the one who had already stolen my name. From my phone screen, Douglas looked older than 58. His face hung low, cheeks unshaven, eyes glassy in the pale infrared light. He cupped his hands against the glass, peering in like he expected to find forgiveness waiting on the other side of the door. "Harper," he said, voice muffled by the wood. "I know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway. Please, honey, we need to talk." Caleb tensed beside me. "Don't move." I didn't. Dad tried the doorknob. The lock held, but the sound, the scrape of metal under his hand, dug under my skin. He lingered 5 minutes, knocked once more, then walked back to his car and sat there with the engine off, a silhouette in stillness. When the headlights finally swept across the wall and disappeared, I realized I'd been holding my breath. I sent the footage to Detective Alvarez at 7:00 a.m. The reply came at 8:05. "We need to meet today. He's escalating." At the precinct, Detective Alvarez watched the video with her jaw set. He's not acting like someone who thinks he's done wrong. That makes him unpredictable. "He thinks we can still fix this," I said. "He called it a family matter, like it's a plumbing issue." "Family doesn't mean immunity," Alvarez said. "You're going to file for a restraining order. Given the fraud case, the judge will grant it." Alicia agreed. "It's a paper wall," she said, "but a paper wall becomes a felony when he crosses it." That afternoon, I filed. I didn't tremble this time. The court clerk slid the paperwork across the counter. The heading, "Temporary Restraining Order," printed in bold, impersonal font. When I got home, I found the mailbox door hanging open again. The lock was broken clean through this time, pried by something sharp. My mail was gone. Caleb replaced it that night with a reinforced steel box, double locking, camera pointed directly at it. We thought that was the end of it. 2 nights later, 2:47 a.m., the alert tone from my phone carved through sleep. Motion detected, driveway camera. I opened the feed. A figure in a hooded sweatshirt, gloved hands, head down. They walked to the mailbox, forced it open in seconds, took something out, and vanished. It was too dark to see a face, but the way they moved, fast, low, efficient, didn't look like my father's slow shuffle. "Could be him," Caleb whispered, squinting. "Or someone working for him," I said. He looked at me, uneasy. "You think he'd—" "Yes." I sent the footage to Alvarez. Her response was immediate. "We'll dust the box for prints. Stay put tonight. Don't confront anyone." I didn't sleep at all. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open to my credit reports, refreshing over and over. 3 new hard inquiries appeared within 12 hours. I felt the panic rising like static, fizzing behind my ribs. Caleb made coffee I didn't drink. At noon, Alicia called. "You need to hear this from me before you see it online." "What?" "Your father's attorney just filed a cease and desist letter, accusing you of defamation and harassment." I laughed. It sounded wrong in the quiet house. "Defamation? He forged my identity. He took out a fraudulent mortgage." "He's trying to stall the investigation," Alicia said. "Don't engage. We respond once, formally. Nothing more. He's playing victim. Don't give him dialogue." I pressed the heel of my hand into my forehead. "He's getting desperate." "Desperate people get sloppy," Alicia said. "That's how we win." The restraining order hearing took place 3 days later. The courtroom was small, its walls the color of unbothered beige. Douglas showed up with a cheap defense lawyer who looked like he specialized in traffic tickets. I watched my father stand before the judge, hair combed, expression of confusion rehearsed to the millimeter. Alicia presented the security footage, the late-night porch visit, the mailbox break-ins, the photos of the damaged lock. Douglas's attorney argued family misunderstanding. The judge didn't even blink. The restraining order was granted. 500 feet, no contact, no third-party communication. When the judge read the order aloud, Dad's jaw went slack. "You can't just erase family," he said quietly. "I wanted to say you erased yourself, but the bailiff was already ushering him out." That night, Detective Alvarez called. "The broker, Victor Lang, was on our radar before your case," she said. "Mortgage fraud, identity theft. Your father's loan fits his pattern." "So he knew it was fake?" "Most likely. He probably took a commission and an under-the-table payment to rush it through. We'll have evidence soon. Will my house be safe? I asked. Once the fraud's proven, yes. The lien gets voided. The bank can't touch you. I exhaled. For the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like drowning. But calm is a fragile currency. Because an hour later, while Caleb and I were eating dinner, my phone buzzed with another unknown number. Stop dragging your father's name through mud. There's always another way. S. Caleb froze mid-bite. That's her again? Yeah, I said. My stomach turned. She's doubling down. I'll call her, he said, already reaching for his phone. No, don't. She might tell me something useful. She might also be part of this. He hesitated, phone halfway between table and air. You think Sophie would? I think she worked for Victor Lang, and he's been paid to fake mortgages. He set the phone down slowly. Jesus, Harper. I know. For a long moment, we just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the rain starting up again. The mailbox camera pinged, another alert. I opened the feed. Nothing but rain, just droplets glinting under the streetlight. But for the first time, I wondered if someone could be watching me through the camera instead. The next morning, Mason called. His number flashed across the screen, and for once, I answered. Harper, he said, his voice low, I need to tell you something. What? Dad's losing it. He's been talking about fixing things, about getting new paperwork. He said if he can just take out another loan in your name, he can buy back his mistake. I stood so fast the chair scraped the tile. He's planning another loan? Yes. I saw applications on the kitchen table, printed out. Some already filled in. I think he submitted them. My vision tunneled. Where are you right now? At his place. Harper, I don't want to be part of this anymore. You won't be, I said. Stay there. Don't touch anything. I'm calling Detective Alvarez. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. Caleb, I said. He's trying again. What? Dad, he's doing it again. Caleb grabbed his keys. We're calling Alvarez now. Within hours, a warrant was issued. That evening, officers raided Douglas's rental. They found the loan applications, multiple lenders, some already submitted electronically, with my name, my social security number, and forged signatures. He was arrested that night. Alvarez called me from the precinct. He's in custody, no bail, attempted identity theft while under investigation. Judge won't risk release. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the muted glow of the camera feed on my phone. For the first time, every frame showed nothing but stillness. Outside, rain turned to mist. Inside, I let myself breathe. The house was quiet again, so quiet I could hear my heartbeat. But in the corner of my inbox, one new email blinked from an unfamiliar address. Subject, Pipeline Cleanup Notice, Lang Capital. I opened it, one line. We'll handle what your father couldn't. Expect contact. S. I stared at the email until the cursor stopped blinking. Expect contact. The words felt surgical, cold, deliberate, and final. I forwarded it to Alicia and Detective Alvarez with the subject line, urgent, new message, possibly broker or associate. Within 10 minutes, my phone rang. Alvarez's tone was crisp. Do not respond. Do not delete it. We're tracing the IP. It originated from a VPN, but the route bounces through an office we already have eyes on, Lang Capital. Caleb sat across from me, half-dressed for work, mug cooling in his hand. They're still coming after you? I nodded. Or cleaning up loose ends. He swore softly, rubbing his jaw. Sophie worked there for 6 weeks. She said she quit because it was sketchy. Too much paper moving. You think she... I think, I cut in, that your ex may know exactly what my father did. Maybe she even helped him find the right broker. Caleb froze. Harper, no. She wouldn't... I met his eyes. You told me she was good at expediting files. She used the same dash in her signature as the email I just got. If this isn't her, it's someone who knows her habits too well. He didn't answer, just stood there, staring through the window, rain streaking the glass like thin prison bars. Detective Alvarez called back that evening. We've confirmed your father's new loan applications. 2 online lenders. He submitted them under your social security number using a prepaid phone. We found that phone in his kitchen, plus cash withdrawals matching the application fees. He's being charged with attempted identity theft. The DA is stacking charges. I pressed the phone tight to my ear. He's staying in jail? No bail. The judge cited him as a continuing threat and flight risk. And Harper... Alvarez's voice softened slightly. You did everything right. You stopped it before the damage doubled. Everything right? It didn't feel like that. It felt like surviving a house fire and realizing the smoke never leaves your lungs. Alicia came by the next morning with a box of paperwork. Good news first, she said. The bank voided the reverse mortgage. The lien's officially removed from your property. It'll take 60 days for the public record to clear, but it's gone. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for half a year. And the bad? I asked. She flipped open her tablet. We received internal correspondence from Lang Capital during discovery. You'll want to see this. On the screen was an email chain titled Priority File Ellison. At the bottom, a name I knew too well, Sophie Hart. Her message was simple. Expedite Ellison case. Client's family needs fast turnaround. DOB adjustment and already handled. Push through before verification flags. S. My stomach turned. That's her, I said quietly. Caleb's ex. Alicia nodded. She was consulting for Lang when your father filed the loan. Her message essentially instructed the broker to bypass identity checks. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. We're turning this over to the DA. I felt the air thin around me. Caleb came home as I finished reading. I slid the tablet toward him. He read it once, then twice. His shoulders slumped like something inside him had broken quietly. She told me she was out of lending, he said. Said she hated it. Said it was boring paperwork. It wasn't boring, I said. It was illegal. He sank into a chair. God, Harper, I'm so sorry. I never thought... I know. I touched his hand. This isn't about blame. It's about proximity. You didn't do this. She did. He nodded, eyes glistening. She called me a month ago. Said she wanted to catch up, but I didn't answer. Maybe she was already cleaning her trail. The next day, Detective Alvarez confirmed it. Lang's broker, Victor, is cooperating. He turned over his emails. Sophie Hart was the go-between, processed intake data, adjusted DOB, and collected a side commission. She's already fled the state, but we'll find her. The puzzle snapped into its final, brutal shape. My father had been the thief, but Sophie had been the locksmith. Weeks passed in a strange quiet. Mason called often, guilt softening his voice. I'm moving out, he said. Can't live with him, even if he gets out. Got a job at a garage downtown. I'm trying, Harp. I know, I said. Try harder. He chuckled weakly. Yeah, I deserve that. Despite everything, I felt sorry for him. He'd been Dad's shadow all his life. Maybe this was the first time he'd seen the difference between loyalty and blindness. Alicia called with updates like chapters closing one by one. Charges filed, identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, bribery, attempted fraud. He's looking at 8 to 15 years if convicted. Lang's broker flipped completely. He confirmed the cash bribe, the forged DOB, the emails from Sophie. He'll testify. The DA considers this a textbook family fraud ring. You'll likely be subpoenaed as the primary victim, not just a witness. Each update was both victory and bruise. Caleb tried to celebrate small things. My credit score slowly climbing, the removal of the lien, the day I finally slept through the night. But I was still waiting for the other shoe, the ghost of the next email, the phantom knock. One night, he took my hand. You did everything right, he said again. I looked at the quiet house, the walls that had listened to so many whispered fears, and for the first time, believed him a little. A week later, Detective Alvarez called with something unexpected. We traced that final email you got. Expect contact. It wasn't just Sophie. She sent it from Lang's internal server after Victor agreed to cooperate. It was a panic move, meant to scare you into deleting your evidence. But because you didn't, we tied her to the chain of fraud. That email you forwarded sealed the case. My breath hitched. So she's charged in absentia, warrant issued. You helped us nail both of them. After I hung up, I went to the window. Outside, the first warmth of spring dusted the grass. The cameras blinked their steady red eyes. For the first time, they didn't look like sentries. They looked like witnesses that could finally rest. I turned to Caleb, who was leaning against the doorway. It's over, I said. He smiled, faint and weary. Then let's finally live like it is. He pulled me into his arms, and for a long moment the silence wasn't fearful. It was clean. But endings in real life don't come with credits. They come with paperwork. Alicia dropped off the last packet 2 days later. A notarized confirmation that the lien was fully dissolved. You own this house free and clear again, she said. Completely. I signed the bottom line, ink steady, name mine. The house felt different that night. The air easier, the hum of the fridge steady, trustworthy. I turned off every light but one and whispered to the walls, we survived them. And maybe, finally, that was enough. 6 weeks later, the air in my house no longer smelled like fear, just lemon cleaner and early summer. The cameras still blinked, but I'd stopped checking them every hour. Sometimes I even forgot they were there. The trial date was set for August. Dad's name, Douglas Ellison, was printed on the docket beside words that looked too harsh to belong to someone who used to pack my school lunches: identity theft, fraud, bribery, attempted fraud, conspiracy. The prosecutor said it was an unusually clear-cut case. The paper trail he left was exhaustive, almost cinematic. Detective Alvarez told me, "Most people get caught because they improvise. Your father planned too much, and that's what made it all traceable." Sometimes justice doesn't need heroes, just arrogance. The week before the hearing, Mason came by. He stood in my doorway holding 2 cardboard boxes of his things. "You weren't kidding about a new mailbox," he said, half smiling. "Steel and paranoia," I replied. "My new aesthetic." He laughed quietly, but his eyes were heavy. "I went to see Dad." I braced myself. "How was that?" "He kept saying he was protecting you," Mason said, setting the boxes down. "He honestly believes he did this for us. That if he could just get one more loan, he could make it right. It's like he lives in a movie where the ending's still negotiable." "That's not delusion," I said. "That's denial dressed as hope." Mason nodded, voice low. He asked if I'd talk you into dropping the charges. "And?" I told him he'd raised the wrong daughter. For the first time in months, I smiled. "Thank you." He looked around my kitchen, the same place where I'd once spread out all those forged papers. "You've made it feel like a home again," he said. "I didn't think that was possible." "It wasn't easy," I admitted, "but it's mine again. Every creak, every shadow." Mason left those boxes by the door. "They're old photos," he said, "from before Mom left. I think you should have them." Later that night, I opened one and found a picture of the 3 of us on the porch of our old house. Dad's arm around both of us, his smile bright and untroubled. For a heartbeat, I almost believed in the man in that photo, the one who used to fix things instead of breaking them. Then I set it down. The man in the photo was gone long before he forged my name. The trial began on a gray Monday. The courtroom smelled like coffee and paper. I sat behind the prosecutor's table while Douglas shuffled in wearing a county jumpsuit, still managing to look offended by the fluorescent lighting. When the judge read the charges aloud, he didn't look at me. Not once. But when they played the surveillance footage, the night he came to my porch, the hand twisting my doorknob, his jaw tightened. I thought I saw regret flicker, but maybe it was just recognition. The camera had seen him exactly as he was. Victor Lang testified next, voice trembling as he described the under-the-table bribe and the falsified paperwork. The prosecutor showed the emails Sophie Hart had written from her Lang Capital account, the same ones that bore her neat, efficient S. By the end of the week, the jury didn't even need a full day, guilty on all counts. The sentence came 2 days later, 9 years in state prison, no parole for the first 5. When the judge asked if I wanted to give a victim statement, I stood and read from a page I'd rewritten a dozen times. "I love my father, but love doesn't mean looking away. He didn't just steal money, so he stole trust, peace, and the sense of safety that a home is supposed to give. What he took wasn't replaceable, but what I reclaimed is mine now, and I'm proud that I protected it." Dad didn't speak. He only nodded once, eyes dull and far away, before they led him out. Afterward, I went home, closed the door, and let the silence wrap around me. Caleb was waiting with takeout boxes and a half smile that meant I didn't want to cook either. We ate on the floor, like we did that first night after everything exploded. "Feels different this time," he said. "It's the same floor," I said, "but we are not the same people." He reached for my hand. "You're stronger than anyone I know." I laughed softly. "I just got tired of being scared." He nodded. "That's usually where strength starts." A month later, I started therapy. My therapist, a quiet woman named Dr. Imani Chase, helped me untangle the guilt I didn't realize I was still carrying. "He's my father," I said one session, "and I sent him to prison." "You didn't send him anywhere," she said. "His actions did. You enforced a boundary. That's what children of broken parents forget they're allowed to do." That word, allowed, lodged in my chest like a key finally turning. Life began to expand again. Mason stopped by on Sundays. Caleb and I took weekend trips to the coast. The cameras became less of a security blanket and more of a habit. And one morning, I woke up, walked to the kitchen, poured coffee, and realized I hadn't thought about my father once in 3 days. Freedom isn't fireworks. It's the quiet you stop noticing because it's become normal again. Last week, I received the final letter from the county clerk. Case closed. Lien voided. Title confirmed clear. I framed it, not out of pride, but as proof. A certificate of reclamation. Now, when I sit on my porch at dusk, I watch the lights flicker on across the street. The world moving like it always does. Indifferent and steady. The mailbox gleams faintly under the porch light. Locked. Unbroken. Caleb comes out, wraps his arm around me. You okay? I smile. Yeah, just looking at what survived. He kisses my temple. That'd be you. I exhale, sofa into man. Some nights I still dream about my dad's knock, the sound of guilt pretending to be love. But when I wake up, all I hear are crickets and the hum of safety. Justice didn't erase the past, but it drew a clean line under it. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid to sign my own name.